So once you log on to the tool, you'll come to this main overview dashboard here. And it's important to just quickly note that the tool features a secure login, and this can only be accessed by approved users. So you can be confident that any sensitive information that you might need to enter on behalf of your organization is protected. So for today, I modeled a food and beverage industry company for us with $100 million revenue. And these are two key pieces of information that are entered during the registration phase. So as you can see here, there are different modules that the tool provides, and today we'll be focusing on the Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions modules. So first we'll start with our Scope 3 emissions categories, but you can start with whichever category or scope you prefer, and you can enter the data over a period of time as long as you save what you entered. So first you might note that there are different circles and colors, and there's a circle for each category. And the different colors kind of indicate where you are in the data input process. So here is the key up here in the upper right-hand corner. And to save us time for our demo today, I've pre-populated some of the different categories, just so you can get an idea at the end of how the final results might look. So first we're going to start off with purchased goods and services. So for each of the categories and for each of the scopes, you'll be presented with a series of screening questions. They help determine which of the categories are relevant to your organization in that reporting year and that need to be calculated. So this would be based off things like your organization's activities or perhaps whether the data is available for your organization. Additionally, if you're ever confused about what activities might be included in a particular category, you can always reference this icon here at the top right corner. If you click on it, it provides a description of the category. So for this category here, purchased goods and services, there are a few ways you can input the data. So you can upload a CSV with your data using this upload spend data button. You're also able to reference the user-defined categories or typical priority categories. So for the user-defined categories, you can search for what you're looking for and enter in the information by line item from your general spread ledger. So let's just kind of search one of the possible categories for us, grain farming. And if you notice, there is a dynamic search function, so you can kind of just type in what you're looking for and it will help you pull up what product category that is. So let's go ahead and enter an amount, say 500,000 US dollars. And another approach you can use with this, with purchase goods and services, is our typical priority categories. So with this category, with this method, you're provided with a list of priority categories that are specific to your industry based on your average sectoral data. And these categories are organized based on greenhouse gas emissions potential. So on the right side, you're provided with a typical range that's based on your industry, a typical spend range, as well as the annual revenue that's inputted for that reporting year. So let's go ahead and enter a line item here. Let's say for the first one, we'll do something within our range. So let's do So typically you'd enter several more entries. We recommend that you input about 90% of your total spend from your general spend ledger into your purchased goods and service category for calculation, but we're just going to move forward with what we have now. So with this tool, I wanted to also show you another functionality that it has, which can be useful as you navigate through the data collection process. It offers a tool error checking functionality. So as you can see here, we've received kind of a flag from the tool. So again, we only entered 2 line items. So if you come to the bottom, you'll see that Carbon360's flag low purchase goods and services spend. So again, it's detecting that there is a low amount of spend for your industry sector and for your total revenue. This notification is just kind of a double check for these data entered to make sure that everything was correct, but you can override this error. So if you would like to move forward, just go ahead and check that and click Save. So now I'm going to take us to the fuel and energy related activities category. And this category here provides a good example of how the tool offers some flexibility in the types of data that you need to input for your Scope 3 calculations. So we have a list, at the bottom here, we have a list of our fuel energy categories, as well as the field for quantity and unit. So you can use monetary or physical units for this category. So for the first one, electricity, let's go ahead and enter in, let's say 2 million kilowatt hours. And for gasoline, you can see here there are different units. So let's go ahead and use, say, 1,500 gallons. And click Save. So what's important to note about this feature is for you, your data collection process might have little flexibility regarding the type of data available. So our tool can accommodate that type of data, making sure that you're using the data that's the most easily accessible. So another capability of the tool is it offers auto calculations of results for certain categories. And these categories, one of the categories is upstream transportation and distribution, which is shown here on the screen. The message that we are presented with at the top says, the greenhouse gas emissions associated with your organization's upstream transportation and distribution have been auto-calculated based on sectoral data and your organization's revenue for the reporting year. So based on these margins, so within the tool, Carbon360 carries data on transportation margins for all sectors, and it includes industry average transportation margins covering air, water, ground, and pipeline transportation. So based on this information and the revenue of your company, emissions factors are applied to the estimated transportation needs to calculate these estimated associated greenhouse gas emissions. So this is one option that can make one option that you can use to make it a little bit simpler on your end for entering data. So of course you can, if you would like to further refine the results for your organization, you have that option. So you can click yes to this first question. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and select no and say we'll use the average data provided by the tool and click Save. So I'm going to jump real quick to investments. So we've covered different categories that are relevant to our particular demo organization, but what if we presented with a category that is not relevant to your organization? The tool also has the ability to address these categories. So for example, we're going to go look at the investments category, and we'll pretend that our food and beverage company does not make any investments. So this is where the screening questions really start to come into play. The first question here says, is the amount of your organization's investment in other organizations exceed 5% of your organization's annual revenue? And we're going to go ahead and say no. So now all those following questions are removed, and instead we're presented with an explanation box. We've pre-populated this message here. You are welcome to enter in your own message as well if you don't want to use this message. I'm going to go ahead and use the default one here, but it's important to note that an explanation is needed in the CDP questionnaire for Scope 3. So if you're planning on not responding to a particular category, then you do need to have an explanation as to why it's not relevant or why it can't be calculated in that reporting year. So we'll go ahead and click Save. So I'm going to jump back to the waste generated in operations. So one other functionality of the tool that some organizations may be interested in when they're reporting their Scope 3 is that you may want to enter in data that either you calculated internally or with a third party, or maybe you have primary data from your suppliers that you've collected that you would like to enter. So the tool can accept this type of data as well. So if you want to input primary data, there's this question here, number 4, have you collected any associated greenhouse gas emissions data from any of your upstream or downstream suppliers? You can go ahead and click yes and enter in that amount. Additionally, if you've collected or, on your own or gauged your own emissions for this category and you want to enter in your value, you can go ahead and, in response to question 3, do you want to question 2, would you like to use your own already calculated scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions data? You can go ahead and select yes and enter in this value. So for today, I'm going to go ahead and use this feature here and say that for the waste generated in operations, we have this amount associated of tons of CO2 equivalency. So that's kind of an overview of scope 3. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave this one here, franchises, red for now, meaning that data has not been inputted. All the green dots here indicate that we've entered or filled out information. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to scope 1 to just kind of provide you an overview of what these sections look like. So again, you're presented with a series of screening questions. And I just wanted to highlight that within this scope 1 categories, there's the flexibility to enter in database with different types of data as well as different units. So with the fuel type groups, there are many options available. When you select a broader group, there are different types of fuel that come up. And if you were to switch groups, let's go ahead and choose. There are different options available. And you can go ahead and select units. And then click save. So the same kind of follows for these other categories. And with scope 2, I'd like to cover with the purchase electricity, how our tool covers of many different countries or regions. So depending on where you source your electricity, we have different emissions factors available for where that is located. So within the United States in particular, we also offer the e-grid subregions. So you can choose your e-grid subregion and enter the amount of electricity purchased from that location. So let's say 150,000 kilowatt hours and click save. So I'm going to go back to the navigation pane for all of these scopes, and so you can kind of see now that data has been entered. The main screen here has started to populate these different fields, and within this kind of table overview, you can see here in this column the emission source, the evaluation status, relevant and calculated for some of the categories. If you go down to our investments category, because we chose not to, we said that it was not relevant, the status here is not relevant, not calculated. Additionally, we have the tons of CO2 equivalency, the methodology, primary data, and explanation. So in this column here, you can see that there are hashtags or pound signs being populated, and that's because our team, the VitalMetrics team, performs an additional quality check on these values. This is because although the tool itself does have a robust error checking system, we as environmental professionals with years of experience, we want to run our own quality check just to make sure that everything is reporting correctly and that all the inputted data was entered correctly. If you notice here in the methodology section, this little button, if you click on it, it provides the methodology description that was used. as well as an overview of how the data that was used in the calculations. If primary data was entered, it would be populated in this space. And then also referencing again, number 9, our investment section, it includes an explanation here for why this category was deemed not relevant. So once you've entered all your data, we could go back into this section here, this red, because we left it as incomplete and complete it. I'm going to go ahead and say we did not generate revenue as a franchisor. Click save. The explanations are not necessary. It's just helpful when providing a more complete response from our team. And once you're ready, you go ahead and click submit, and it will send this to us. So now that we've gone ahead and submitted the data, I'd like to now show you an example of some of the final results generated by the tool.